Welcome to Hope in the Face of Cancer, where we share real stories of courageous people in their cancer journey. Today, we are excited to hear from Dr. Keith Saathoff, a veterinarian, devoted husband and father, 19-year stage 4 lymphoma survivor, and a former CanCare client. As a dedicated veterinarian in Tomball, Texas, Dr. Keith has spent decades building lasting relationships with his clients and their beloved pets, becoming an integral part of the community he loves. His cancer challenges have profoundly shaped his life, and the deep bond he formed with his CanCare volunteer, Leonard, has been a source of strength and hope throughout his journey. Join us as Dr. Keith shares his inspiring story of survival, the unwavering passion he has for his work, and the powerful connections that have sustained him through life's toughest challenges. Keith, welcome to Hope in the Face of Cancer.
Thank you so much, Darcy, and thank you for the opportunity for me to share my cancer journey as well as place a spotlight on CanCare and what this organization has meant to me over all these years.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Well, let's get started for our listeners. Let's kind of go back. 19-year survivor, that's truly incredible. Tell us about that early stage of you learning about your diagnosis.
So I had been ill for about a year and just didn't feel right. Went to doctors. They did tests. They thought maybe it was a thyroid problem. I thought maybe it was a salivary gland problem, did biopsies, and I just still wasn't right. And so on New Year's Day, 2005, I had a terrible headache and I decided I'm going to an ER.
Oh.
I drove myself to an ER. I told them what was going on. They gave me an injection of some narcotic to ease the pain and ordered a CAT scan. I came back and said, everything looks normal. We're going to go ahead and release you. You'll have to just follow up with another doctor. And I said, well, while I'm here, I said, there's something not right in my abdomen. Would you mind scanning my abdomen? And he said, sure, we can scan your abdomen. And you can go ahead and get dressed afterwards and we'll give you a call. I don't expect I'm going to find anything, but we'll let you know. So I had the scan and I went back to my room and got dressed and was leaving the hospital. And as I'm walking down the hallway, my phone rang and I looked down and it was the hospital calling.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow, that's really fast. So I picked up the phone and the doctor said, where are you? I said, I'm still here in the hospital. He said, good, don't leave. He said, you have cancer. So it knocks your breath out of you.
Yeah.
Your stomach just drops. In fact, I physically dropped. I dropped to my knees and said, I can't believe it. So it's the words no patient ever wants to hear. Yeah. It's shocking. It's difficult to process in the initial diagnosis.
Absolutely. So as he brought you back in, to tell you about what to expect, kind of what did that journey look like in treating your cancer?
So they initially said, we're going to go ahead and release you. We think it's lymphoma and you'll have to find an oncologist. And I said, I don't want to leave. I want to start my treatment now.
Yeah.
I've been dealing with it for a year. I want to go ahead and start treatment. And he said, okay, we'll go ahead and order a biopsy of a lymph node for you. And when the surgeon came in, I said to him, I want you to put a port in me as well when you do my biopsy. And he said, why do you want me to do that? I said, because I know I'm going to need treatment for this cancer and I want to start as soon as we can. And through a series of calls to friends that called oncologists, an oncologist by the name of Harry Price called me at the hospital and he said, Keith, I will admit you down in the medical center at Methodist Hospital, but we have to get you there. And he said it has to be an internal transfer. So we're going to put you in an ambulance. I'm going to have you brought down here and I'm going to meet you there and we're going to get started.
So in essence, you walked in to the ER and you never really left. You went straight into your cancer treatment.
I did. I did.
Wow.
So it was not a lot of time to process that. At the early onset, we didn't know particularly what kind of cancer of the
Mhm.
lymphoma variety. There's a lot of different varieties, and I can recall thinking, "Oh gosh, I'm praying let it be Hodgkin's lymphoma because seems to be a more treatable form of the disease." And when the biopsy came back, it said non-Hodgkin's.
Mhm.
I would pray, "Oh God, let it be, stage two, and not stage four." And it came back, and it was we have to tell you it's stage four. So it was tough to process. I will say I did have a huge amount of outpouring of support almost immediately
Mhm.
from my family, from my siblings, my parents. I think I called my mom first and
Yeah.
said, "No, Mom, I'm in the hospital and I have cancer." And she said, "I'm going to go get your dad. I'm packing a bag. We'll be there in 5 hours." And
Wow.
they were there by my side. Um, there, the word went out real quickly, and this huge group of people started, praying for me, calling, um, and those things are wonderful to help prop you up,
Yeah.
in the initial shock of the diagnosis. But in the end, you have to really just process it and try to figure out a plan. And what does this mean now for my life? I'm now a cancer patient.
Yeah.
Different focus.
Absolutely. So at what point did you find CanCare and get connected to Leonard?
So I was in the hospital at Methodist downtown, and my wife at the time, I think, heard about CanCare and sent CanCare my information. And someone called me and said, would you like to have a volunteer and to support you, and explained kind of what the organization was about. And I said, I think, yeah, that could help. And so they paired me and said, you'll be hearing from a volunteer, soon. And I don't remember how long that was before I got that call from Leonard, but eventually I got that call, and he explained, who he was and what he could do for me. And the journey with Leonard and CanCare began.
Wow.
I will say that one of the things that I realized pretty early on, even though I had a huge amount of support, was that nobody could really understand or relate. I was 45
Mhm.
years old. I had two small children at home. I owned a veterinary practice that I was a solo owner and trying to run it. And I was getting tons of calls. I was getting lots of cards, but there was nobody that could really meet the need of meeting you in this journey that could
Yeah.
say, I can help you because I've done it. Kind of a funny
Mhm.
anecdote. I can remember after I did my first treatment in the hospital, and they released me to go back home and start, every few weeks chemotherapy protocol. And I would go out to the mailbox, and the mail delivery person, I met them out there one day, and the mail person said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." And they said, "Did somebody die here?" And I said, "No." And she said, what are all these cards for?"
Wow.
Said, "Well, they're for me." And then I was able to share with the mail person that, what was going on in my life. And she said, "Well, I don't think I've ever had so many cards delivered to one
Ah,
place. Somebody had died." So I realized what a blessing it
yeah.
was. I had so many
Absolutely.
people, that were involved like that. But, at the end of the day, like I said, Leonard, met me at a place that nobody else really could, because he
Mhm.
had faced the same diagnosis at about the same age in his life. So it was
So
very,
tell
very,
us about that relationship for those who may be listening who don't quite know what a can care relationship looks like, and each of them are very different. But
sure.
tell us about that relationship with Leonard. What are the kinds of things you talked about, and how did you reach out to him, and what did that look like to you?
Right. So as a veterinarian, I deal in, like flow charts to get to a diagnosis and developing a plan of action for a particular problem with an animal. And so I had this need to try to have, a plan and start
Yeah.
implementing it.
To be in control, right?
Yeah, there you go. So you nailed it. So yeah, to be more in control, I guess, and you realize really quickly you're not. You're disappointed because your body has failed you.
Yeah.
And I did have a plan in place, but I think Leonard early on was able to tell me, Keith, you can't like look at this plan way down the line. He said you have to start looking at this as a long distance run, and you have to start breaking it down into how do you process today. And that was so
day by day.
because if there was a hitch in the plan, or if it didn't go as you expected, or we had a complication during the treatment, which we did have, and ended up back in an ICU, ended up in the emergency room due to complications from the chemotherapy. He was able to talk to me in a way that was so calming and so reassuring that this is a setback, but this doesn't stop where you're going. And where we're going, where I'm going with you, Keith, is we're going to get you to the point where you're going to beat this. And I'm going to help you each step of the way. And I will just tell you, it was a virtual relationship, basically, because I had not met Leonard. He didn't come up to the hospital. This was all by phone. But he was so intuitive about knowing just when I might need to call. It was almost uncanny how he would pick up that phone and call. I think he did more from that direction than I did picking up the phone and calling him and saying, Leonard, I need help. He intuitively knew. And I guess that's what made him such a great source of strength in my life, is that we just had this bond. And then eventually we did get to meet, but that was way after my treatment was over. But, if somebody's out there wondering, can you develop a close, personal, emotional relationship with somebody just by phone? I'm here to tell you, you absolutely can.
Yeah, that's powerful. So tell us about when you did finally get to meet Leonard.
So when I finally did get to meet Leonard, it was CanCare set up the meeting. They had called and said, we'd like to have you guys meet. We've heard both of your stories. And so they set it up and kept us separated from each other in separate rooms. And they were talking with him in one room and me in the other. And I could hear his voice. And it was so incredible to hear that voice so close to me rather than on the other end of a phone line. So when they said, okay, we're ready for you to go in, it was an overwhelming feeling of gratitude to this man for what he had done for me and how he helped me through that journey. I honestly, Darcy, I don't know how I would have done it without him. He was that important to me. Again, going back to those, there's so many examples I can tell people of how he helped. I could be at a, sporting event. I was at Baylor at a football game, and I'm looking at these thousands of people around me, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm thinking, am I the only person here that's not truly enjoying the moment?
Right.
Because I'm thinking about cancer, and the phone rang, and it was Leonard, and I picked it up, and he's like, what's going on? And I was immediately able to just pull away from the group that I was with and go talk with him. And he was able to just help me refocus about trying to enjoy the moment that day.
Yeah. And you guys have stayed connected, over these 19 years sporadically, right?
Yeah. So recently I had a little reoccurrence of lymphoma that was peripheral. It was not a huge scare, but I did have to have a little bit of treatment. And then we did a radiation therapy. And so I didn't call Leonard because I was okay with it. And, as you go through this journey and you get this many years out from it, it gets a little bit easier not to panic when you hear that
Yeah.
the test was not exactly normal. Um, so I went through the treatment and I had a scan afterwards, and it was a good scan. And I was driving back home from the scan and meeting with my oncologist, and the phone rang, and I looked down, and it was Leonard, 19 years
How does
later.
he know?
How does he know? And so I picked up the phone with this like crazy big grin on my face as I'm driving, and I was like, Leonard, how do you know? And he said, hey, you were just on my heart, And he said, I've learned that when something crosses
Yeah.
my heart like that, I need to pick up the phone and call. So yes, 19 years later, he is still an important part of my journey. Yeah.
Wow. Was there a particular moment that you think about during your cancer journey that was particularly overwhelming that you could share with
Yeah.
our audience?
And Leonard is a part of that one too.
Mm.
I was somewhere in the treatment process, and I was at home. I was feeling very tired. I was feeling very weak. And there was a broken uh, fitting pipe faucet underneath our kitchen sink that was spraying everywhere. And
Goodness.
I had to get out of the bed, and I got down to the kitchen. I got the valve shut off, or the water to the house turned off, and I went to Home Depot to try to procure the parts. I had a hard time finding somebody to help me. I didn't know, what all I needed, and needed help. And I just at that point got so overwhelmed
Yeah.
that I walked out of the store. I went out in front where the carts were, and I just sat on concrete and cried. I just
Mm.
didn't know if I could keep going on, with the day to day, and the things that happen in life,
Right.
just kind of overwhelmed just because of the exhaustion and because of the treatment process. And while I'm sitting there crying on the concrete, the phone rang again, and it was Leonard. And he's like, hey, what's happening? And I was like, yeah, let me tell you what's happening, Leonard. I'm outside a Home Depot, on the concrete crying. I'm so overwhelmed. And he was able to help me, get through that little crisis, if you will.
Yeah.
Got the parts, and kept putting one foot in front of the other. I think he helped me so much in focusing, on the day to day, the process that, you're going to get through this episode, and I think one of the things I can remember him teaching me was that, Keith, if you can't break it down to day, he said, break it down to hour.
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah.
and let's get through the next hour. Let's get through this next infusion. Let's get through this. It's going to look a little better on the
Yeah.
other side of that. And if you can't get through this hour, break it down and say, get me through the next few minutes.
It's
Wherever.
wise counsel.
He's a good guy. He's a
He
good
is a
guy.
great guy. That's right. So you've been living with cancer now for 19 years. How have you adjusted your life, or how has your life changed due to your diagnosis and due to, you know, this journey, this 19-year journey that you've been on now?
So I think most cancer patients will tell you, me included, that a cancer diagnosis does help you start resetting priorities.
Mm.
Um, I think, you get involved in your life and my business, just raising children wherever you are in life, the busyness of life, and maybe the things that are most important aren't maybe the most urgent, and
Mm.
and it can help you uh, focus maybe on what's most important and not what's most urgent or pressing. Um, I think that, initially it's this far out. I guess I would tell people it's easy for you to fall back into the old habits, that you were things you worried about before. And when you're newly out of treatment and doing well, it's easier to stay prioritized. The further you get out, it starts fading a little bit in your mind. But, when you get a call that says, the test doesn't look so good now, in my journey, like in a lot of them, I think, we think that once you get to a certain stage, like 5 years out, you can use the C word, the cure word. And I can remember talking to my doctor at about 5 years about that. And he said, well, in your particular case with this type of lymphoma, he said that we can't use that word. It's never cured. It's something that you have to look at as probably a long-term situation. And he said, my goal for you was to get you decades of remission. And, he was spot on about that. And so each time, I have to deal with it again, it does help you reset those priorities again that maybe you looked at early on when you had that initial shock.
So how do you think your mindset has shifted, or how are you approaching life differently now that, you are really living, with cancer, and that this is a long journey? Like, how has that changed your kind of day to day?
Well, I think that the most important thing that I think I've learned along that line is that you don't have to panic. That cancer today is not what cancer was even almost 20 years ago when I
Great
got
point.
diagnosed. There are so many other great modalities of treatment for people out there. There are less invasive, they're less toxic, they're more effective, they're targeted therapies. There's so many things that then now keep you, if you have to keep fighting this battle, to keep you from despair, to keep you from panicking along the way.
To give you hope.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much more out there now to help.
I know Leonard obviously was a key relationship for you during your cancer journey, but I know you established other close connections, even among, the cancer care team. Tell us a little bit about that and the role that played in your journey.
So my love language, what helped me through the process is touch, honestly. And it's very easy if you're going through chemotherapy, for sure. When you lose all of your hair, you're thin, you're pale, you look terrible, you feel unlovable almost. I can remember going to the hospital and a couple of people, and I can mention them by name. There was a lady, young woman at the front desk that was kind of the greeter. Her name was Keisha. And I can tell you that I still remember to this day, one of the joys I had going in there was when I came into that facility, I knew Keisha was going to get up from her desk and she was going to envelop me in this bear hug. And it just felt so affirming and so good. And when I was in treatment inpatient, there was a young PCA, an assistant, that was young. She had braces on, I think, even, but she was so kind and she was so enthusiastic, in her job, and just was great in her care of me. And so when I was last back at the hospital now, 19 years later, I'd asked my wife, we were talking about, my journey a little bit. And I said, do you know whatever happened to Adrienne? She was a PCA. And she goes, oh, Adrienne's still there at the hospital. She's going to be 3 floors above, I think, where you're having your scan this week. And I said, I'm going to go up and visit Adrienne. And so I did. After my scan, I went up and went to her desk and I said, I don't know if you remember me. And she looked at me and she all of a sudden did. She said, I recognized you by your voice. It's been, almost 20 years since she's seen me. And she ran around the desk and we hugged and reconnected. And I was able to tell her, what a difference she made
Yeah.
in my journey just because of the way she did her job. Uh, the doctors were great. They were all so caring and kind, and I had some real connections, and I'm still connected to some of those people, that helped me through the process in the hospital.
I think that's a testament to, I think most people think when you have a cancer diagnosis, um, it's all about the treatment team, the physicians, but there's a whole broader perspective of your needs as a cancer patient, the emotional, mental, spiritual, and really having to surround yourself with people who can fill and help with each and every one of those buckets.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
that's a big aha
And
we hear from many.
behind you there, that's part of that care team that's not only administering your care, but also championing your eventual success and
Yeah,
overcoming it and thriving, and they were able to do that. A lot of them. So
that's
helpful to me.
incredible. We often ask many of the volunteers that go through our training program as they're processing their own cancer journey and preparing themselves to support others. We ask them what the gift of cancer was for them. And it's a very counterintuitive question for most. And at first, sometimes we get, a little strange looks like, what do you mean the gift of cancer? But upon reflection, every single person can articulate something that truly was a gift from their cancer journey. What was your gift of cancer?
Well, mine is truly unique, and it's a gift I never would have expected. I went through a very difficult time during my cancer treatment year. Um, my marriage crumbled. I think if there's anybody out there listening that's, in that particular situation, after, going through it, I have heard many situations where a cancer diagnosis within a family and within a marriage will sometimes bond you closer together, and sometimes it will blow it apart. And in my case, it blew it apart. So I ended up divorcing after the year of cancer treatment. And I had gone back into the hospital for a checkup and a bone marrow biopsy after all the treatment was over. Um, and I was assigned to a room and placed on my stomach for the procedure. And in a bone marrow biopsy, they drill a large gauge
Yeah.
needle into your hip bone, your pelvis, to harvest this bone marrow. It's a very painful procedure, and I was there by myself. And the nurse that was assigned to me that day said, would you like me to hold your hand? I said, would you? And she said, sure. So she pulled up a little stool and came to the front of the bed where I was laying on my stomach and held my hand through the procedure. And once it was over, I got up and turned around and I gave her a hug. And she said, wow, you really hugged me. And I said, wow, I really appreciate what you did for me. I'm here by myself. I didn't have anybody to hold my hand, and I really appreciated that nurse's name was Cheryl. And that was the start of a relationship that I had no idea that I was needing or looking for. And today, Cheryl is my wife.
Oh my goodness. That is incredible. That is a gift of cancer. I tell you. How long have you guys been married now?
So we've been married, let's see, 14 years, going on 15. And
Wow, that's incredible.
we blended a family. She had 2 children. I had 2 children. And yeah, so, I can remember early on in the process, my dad sat with me on a front sidewalk at the house that I was living in at the time. And I said, Dad, just look at me. I'm sick. I'm in an unhappy, unhealthy situation in marriage. I said, who's going to want me now? Who's going to want me now? I was so despondent, and looking back on it now, there was a bigger plan.
Wow.
Had I not had cancer, um, I wouldn't have met all these people that I met along the way. I wouldn't have the wife that I have today and the marriage that I have today. I wouldn't have had Leonard in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gained a family
I
through
gained
your
so much,
cancer journey.
I gained so much more than what cancer took away from me.
That's powerful. What message would you like to leave with our listeners today? If maybe there's someone out there who is facing a new diagnosis or is loving someone who just heard those words, you have cancer. What message do you want them to take away from our conversation today?
There are people in your journey that can give you comfort, that can give you strength, that can help you through the process. But through CanCare and through my volunteer, that was somebody that could give me more. That could give me hope.
Mm.
So I would tell people, try it. CanCare may not be what you need, but the people that are volunteering there, the people that are behind this organization are behind a goal that's to put a survivor by your side and to help not just give you comfort, not just help you, but to give you hope. And that's so important, I think, in the journey. My wife is a cancer nurse, and she will say, Keith, those people that do the absolute best are the ones that have hope, that have a positive attitude. And partnering with somebody from CanCare can provide that for you. And so I would say to somebody that needs something more than just your regular support system, reach out, give it a chance, see if there's somebody that can help you. It can make your journey easier.
That's right. That's our mission. Provide hope to anyone facing cancer, a survivor by your side.
Well, I will say too, when you and I first started talking, I had to laugh about it because, your first question to me in our first conversation was, Keith, let's get the elephant out of the room. And the elephant was, you're a 19-year survivor. Why aren't you a volunteer yet?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, exactly. So, I ruminated on that a little bit. And, very early on in the healing process after my treatment and when I was doing well, there was still a time, and this is not an excuse. This is just what was going on. I had a really hard time driving past a medical center, a major medical center. It brought up so much trauma that I would feel sick to my stomach to even drive past the hospital for a while. I had small children. I was busy with that. I was back in my business and involved in, veterinary medicine and care for the animals. And so I just put it on the back burner. But I will say, Darcy, you put it back on the front for me. So you kind of roped me in. So yeah, I'm ready,
Oh, we're ready to have you. We're so excited about that.
Training classes and see, as I get closer and closer to retirement, that I can, shift from just doing what I can do in my own life. I've always been willing to talk with, people that are going through the journey or people that know. There are so many people out there that now are touched by cancer. If you're not personally touched, you have a friend, a father, a cousin, an aunt, that is touched by cancer. And so if if you're looking, that's I guess my final say, in this podcast is that if you have extra resources, this is a shameless plug for CanCare. I think that this is such a great organization to focus on giving cancer patients hope by putting somebody that's been there, done that by your side to walk the journey with you is phenomenal. So kudos
Thank you for
to
that, Keith.
your organization and to all of you. I appreciate so much what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. And we're so excited to welcome you into the CanCare family as a volunteer. And to your point, I think, everyone's ready for something like that at a different pace. And you do have to be ready. You have to be at a place where you feel capable of giving back, of having processed your journey. And so I appreciate that in you, that maybe that you weren't ready for that at a certain time, but now you are. And you will be the Leonard to other people. And just think about that. Think about,
I hope,
yeah,
each relationship I'm sure is different.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
each cancer patient needs maybe something a little different, from their volunteer. But I think at the heart of it all is it's just developing the relationship, with somebody to give that hand out, hand up, to help get up out of the bed, to put one foot in front of the other. And I think that, the best lesson, I think we as sojourners in life, whether it's, a cancer patient or anybody, is to try to live day by day. There were times when I would want to know, what is my future going to be? What's it going to look like? And I finally came to the realization, I feel like I had a real word from my God, higher power, that said, I never promised you a crystal ball. I promised to walk with you day by day. So quit looking ahead, look down at your feet, and keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I think that's such a great lesson for us all, to try to find that joy or that purpose day by day by day, and stop looking down the road so far, because it's never guaranteed.
Yeah, that's wise counsel. So we've talked a lot about your cancer journey, but you just used the R word, retirement. So what's ahead for you and your beautiful bride? What are you guys planning as you hang up the practice?
Yeah, I think I'm not ready to exit yet. So I think that probably the journey for me is going to be a gradual exit. I think I have decided that for myself, it's better to continue to do what I love, which is being a veterinarian, and do maybe just a little bit less of it. As I transition out and do a little bit more of things that I want to do. And maybe that's, reading, it's traveling. There's hope for grandchildren. We've got 2 children getting married this year.
Oh, how exciting.
Last year. So we're eagerly anticipating our little blended family continuing to grow. That will be a great blessing in my life. Early on, when I got diagnosed, you try to sometimes, I think, bargain with God. And I said, these boys, mine were 7 and 9. I said, I can't leave them. I have got to be here for them. I've got to survive till they become young adults, young men. Help me get through this to get them to that point. And then when that point came, I was like, ooh, maybe I should have bargained for a longer time. I'm blessed for the time I've had, but they're all becoming, wonderful young adults in their own right. And it will be my greatest and Cheryl's greatest pleasure for us to see, hopefully, our family grow and to become involved in future grandchildren's lives.
Now, how exciting is that? And what a great example of strength and of building community and relationship that you have set for your beautiful blended family. So thank you
Thanks.
for that. And
There's
thank you for, go ahead.
I'm sorry. There's stories I think that I hope they will listen to the podcast. There's a lot of the journey I don't think that they know either. So
Oh, well, this
hopefully,
could be a gift for them to
yeah,
give a little
hopefully so.
insight.
Hopefully so. They'll
Yeah,
kind of maybe better understand too where I came from and what brought me to this point and maybe who I am today.
absolutely. Well, Keith, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your heart, your wisdom, your journey with our listeners today. We're so grateful for you to come and share what's on your mind about your journey, but also what's ahead for you. And we welcome you into the CanCare family. And I know that you will touch the lives of so many. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Darcy. I've already felt part of the family for a long time, just as being a recipient, and felt so bonded to you all. But as I've watched y'all's leadership change over, and I see the new people coming in, I see the focus is just the ball's still rolling. The focus is still there. You all are doing such a great thing for people
Thank you so much. It's an honor to serve our cancer community, and we've got so much more to do. So we invite anyone interested in joining us on this journey to visit us at cancare.org, learn more, and we look forward to our next episode of Hope in the Face of Cancer. Thank you so much, Keith.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Hope in the Face of Cancer, a survivor by your side. If you or someone you know is facing cancer or is supporting a loved one through their journey, we invite you to share this podcast. Thank you for your support in our efforts in the cancer community. No one should face cancer alone.